Hey guys, so I made a video a few minutes ago about what it's like to work a session with me, and I guess today is a day of videos because I have a few more to give. I've been urged to do this for last week, and I always postpone and procrastinate because I have too much stuff going on. So today, Spirit was like, "That's it. You're getting your ass on here, and you're giving these messages." So um, this video is going to be about 3 parts of self. This is a great tool I use with my clients, and it seems kind of weird at first if you haven't done any of this kind of inner child healing work before, but just humor me and go with it because it's really cool and it really works. So this is great for people who have abandonment attachment issues, severe anxiety, childhood trauma, so many different things. So the inner child healing, I'm going to do a separate video on that, but I'll explain real quick. For those of you who didn't have like nurturing, loving, compassionate, caring parents, a lot of us will go through life just based on survival skills or survival mechanisms. And we learn to love and how to be in family units from cues of other people. Maybe you went to a friend's house when you were younger and you kind of watched how their family interacted, and that's how you learned to interact to break the cycle of the inner child issues. But a lot of us have the inner child issues, and doesn't mean you have bad parents. It just means that they did the best with what they could, at the time, or with what they had, and or what they knew, because it's hard to break that toxic cycle. And just now, all these different modalities are coming out, and all this energy healing and all these things are coming out now. So people are healing at larger scales and in deeper levels, and they didn't have that before. There weren't all these people doing this energy healing work and going back to childhood trauma. It was kind of like you just sucked it up and moved on, and that causes huge issues. It goes back in your subconscious mind, and I've said before in other videos, I've explained that everything gets stored in your subconscious mind for your entire life. It's every event is stored there, and it doesn't go away. It's like a computer, and it takes it all in, and it keeps it all in an index. And the things that are emotional, negative trauma, they stay back there in your subconscious. And a lot of us will have something traumatic come up or an emotional event, and going through life, you got to keep pushing forward. You have kids to raise, you have things to do, you have to go to school, you have to work. So we push all that stuff just back, and we just keep pushing and moving all that stuff, sweeping it back to your subconscious mind, and just keep going, just to survive, a survival mechanism, like I said. So when that happens, that stuff doesn't go anywhere. It stays in there, and it causes all this toxicity in your life, and it causes autoimmune illnesses. And a lot of people, that I feel like that's why so many people have autoimmune illnesses now, is they're not taking care of themselves. It's so much of the hustle and bustle of life, and you got to work. Most people work at least 40 hours. Some work 50, 60, and you work that until these days, and there are 80 people who are 80 years old still, working full-time jobs. And so we don't get that rest period like people used to get. It's more of a work harder, work harder lifestyle these days. So we got to keep pushing forward. So we push that stuff back, and it never heals. It just stays there. So the way my channeling works is I dig in and we remove it, and once it comes to the surface, it dissipates and it never comes back. So this is one of the tools I use with my clients, and it's called 3 parts of self, and it kind of replaces. It's like a surrogate for the parenting that you didn't have. So I'm going to say inner child throughout this video, and it'll make more sense when you watch the other video called inner child. So make sure you go watch that one as well. And you can probably stop this at this time and go watch that one first if you want to come back. But so when we have parental units that aren't compassionate and caring and loving, and protective, and maybe it could be something, I say that when you're 5 and 6, something that now as an adult you don't think is a big deal, that should be brushed off, but at 5 or 6 it was a huge deal. It was life-changing for you. It was so negative. It was the end of your world. When you're this little kid and something happens, it could be just like being upset about something and being completely dismissed for it, and then just told to suck it up or walk it off. And it doesn't go away. You just push that stuff back. So it starts with, we don't get the fundamental building blocks like people who had parents who were compassionate and loving and protective. You don't get that same result as you get older. And what happens is we use survival mechanisms to go through life, so we don't have a strong foundation. So when you don't have that strong foundation, you're just this weak, house built of sticks, or and cards and it just takes a little bit of wind to blow it down and your whole life falls apart. So what I do is I teach people to go back and essentially raise their inner child. So to do this, you have three parts of self. There is a protective self, a nurturing self, and a spiritual self. And these are all actually you. So you're going to think back in your life, and sorry, everyone, I have allergies today, but you're going to think back in your life of a time where you were protective. So I'm going to go through this exercise, actually real quick before I get into that. I'm going to go through this exercise and I want you to sit here and take notes if you need to. And I really think you should all use this because it's really going to help you. So for the first part, we'll start with the protective side of self. I always start with that one. And think back to a time where you were really protective and like maybe you stuck up for a sibling, a younger sibling, or maybe your own child or a friend, a time where, or maybe even yourself, you stood in your power, a time where you felt really strong and powerful doing this and you were really protective and you were helping the other person really feel safe. So think of a time in that way. And you could write these notes down and then go to actually do the exercise after you watch the video. So you go back, think of that time in your life and you really sit there and think about that situation or that event and you burn that image of yourself into your brain. So what I always say is I go with the client and have them think of that event and then I'll sit there and say, now sit there and really see yourself in that time. See and feel that situation like you were still there. And your brain will always take you back and you'll always be able to go back and feel those feelings of the event you chose. And you can't really do a general thing. You have to really pick a specific event. That really helps for the clarity of this. So you really want to go back and really choose a time where an exact day that you remember clearly where you were protective and helping someone and making them feel safe. And then that made you feel strong and powerful. And how I always do it, and you won't have someone doing this with you unless you do a session with me, but I always say, how did you feel? And I have them tell me back and put their emotions and feelings into words because it really helps solidify and ground that exercise. So you think of a time where you were strong and you sit there and look at yourself. And I always say, sit there and really sit in the moment and feel it and look at yourself as if you're the other side, you're the person being protective and look at yourself at that time and as an outsider and they're the protector. So they sit in that for a minute and then I say, okay, now go to on your nurturing side. Think of a time where maybe you helped a friend or again your own child or a sibling, someone, or you gave someone younger advice, a time where you were really nurturing and caring for someone. Maybe you helped someone through a tough time. Sat there and had a conversation. For me, it was my daughter was younger at the time when I did this, and it was me having a talk with her about some girl she was having problems with at school. So I really talked her through it, and she was upset. And at that time, I was just really loving and nurturing to her, and made sure she knew her feelings were validated and they were real, and she deserves to feel how she feels. And I was just there for her. I let her vent and I try to give her solutions. So it's a time where I was really nurturing and caring. So you sit there and think about that. And I always say, of course, I always say, put your words into emotions. And if you're going to do this exercise by yourself, you could write it out on a piece of paper. It's really important. Always, I always do that in different exercises. And I'll do some other tools, videos on some other tools I use for clients. And I always have them write their feelings and emotions into words because it really brings it out on how you're feeling. A lot of us are so out of tune with our body language and how our bodies talk to us and tell us things that we don't really listen as much as we should. So putting it into words kind of anchors it in. It's kind of like when you're manifesting and you're writing your intentions out, you write them on a piece of paper for a reason. It gets them out and solidifies them and sets them in concrete. So that's what we want to do with these feelings as well. So you think about your nurturing self and you sit there and look at yourself in that situation on that day. Try to remember what your hair looked like, what you were wearing. Just really see yourself, in that moment, and take in that time and that situation and really think about, how you were really trying to help that person, because that nurturing side of you is going to actually be your surrogate kind of parental unit for your inner child, if that makes sense. So you sit there and really take it in and that, again, one specific event, and that's going to be your nurturing self. And then I move on to the spiritual self. And this is always my favorite one. So my spiritual self was me on my motorcycle. When I'm on my motorcycle, I'm out in nature pretty much. You see more than you do in the car. It was so peaceful. I don't ride as much anymore, but I used to all the time. And it was just like, it was my church, you know, it was so peaceful and relaxing, and nothing could touch me when I was on that bike. It was just like, well, then like semi or car, but anyway, I digress. Um, but it was like, it's so peaceful, you know, just to go on the open road and see all these trees and, you know, and birds, and hear the noises and hear the pipes and all the wind in my face. It was my church. So that was my spiritual side. So I always tell someone, like, pick maybe a situation where you're on the beach. If that's your place to go, if you're on the beach, maybe you go hiking in the mountains, that's your spot. Maybe it's sitting on your deck. Maybe it's gardening, you know, something peaceful and relaxing. And you sit there and you think about it. You think of yourself in that moment where you're completely relaxed, at peace. Nothing can touch you, whether it's on your front porch or it's at the ocean. And you always want to imagine this big, bright, white and golden light, just beams of light coming out of your chest, coming right out of your heart chakra. And that moment when you're thinking of that, it changes you for some reason. That exercise where just adding that light, that golden and white rays of light coming out of your heart chakra, out of your chest, just beaming, just gives you this sense of peace and power. And I always tell them, sit in that for a minute, and how do you feel? And usually that one, they feel free and relaxed and completely calm, and it just feels like, you know, like this whole weight is lifted. And I tell them to sit in that for a minute, and then I always go back. Okay, let's go back to your protective side of self. Can you see yourself in that situation? Saying that you're strong, you're powerful, you know, and I'll have them tell me how they feel. And then, okay, let's go to your nurturing side. So you're sitting there, you know, giving someone advice. How are you feeling? And they tell those feelings. And then I go back to the spiritual. And then I will have them sit there for a minute or 2 minutes and just sit there and feel them. Imagine sitting there with those three versions of you. You're this wounded inner child, and you're sitting there. So you're sitting there with them and you're taking it all in. And what it does is it makes you feel whole. And I can't even explain it. If you do the exercise, you'll know, or book a session with me and we'll do a few tools, but that'll be one of them. I usually go through that one because most of us do have inner child issues. And just sit in that space with those three parts of self, the protective, nurturing, and spiritual. And it just changes you. It gives you a sense of wholeness. And it works really good for people in relationships that have abandonment issues and attachment issues. So a good example is, you know, your partner is gone. Maybe they're gone for the weekend. Maybe they're gone for a night. And you're not used to being alone, or maybe you feel triggered when they're gone, or you have some trust issues. You know, that's your inner child screaming out that they need attention and love. You're an adult now. You're the one that has to give that inner child, you know, the love and attention. You can't depend on another person to make you whole. You have to make you whole. So you sit with those three parts of self. And I still use it sometimes. We all digress. You know, we all go back to a time where sometimes we get triggered and we're not happy about it, but we're constantly evolving and constantly growing. We're going to have slip back sometimes. So once in a while, I'll still use it. When I'm starting to feel, you know, if I'm by myself, I'm feeling lonely, or, you know, I feel like maybe I'm not feeling love, or maybe I'm feeling invisible sometimes, I will sit with those three parts of self. And I've been using this for years and years, and it works every time. It always makes me feel better. And I really encourage you to try it, and I hope it helps you. And you'll have to try it, and then maybe put comments under this video and let me know your experience, because I would love to know if it helps you. Because I know I have some clients who have had some really deep emotional issues and some really severe abandonment issues, and they have tried this. And just that little exercise, it takes a little while to get used to it, so you may have to do it. I mean, when I first started doing it years ago, I was doing it 2-3 times a day. Sometimes that's needed just to build it up and just to make it, because sometimes it takes a couple minutes to kind of like, okay, you know, protective side, okay, nurturing side, okay, now try my spiritual side. It takes a minute to go through those people when you're just kind of getting used to exercise and trying to picture them in your head. And then eventually with practice, it just becomes second nature. Like I can sit here right now, close my eyes, and imagine those three parts of self, and it immediately gives me a warm, comfortable feeling. It makes me feel whole again. Even if I'm feeling fine, it works. So whenever you need comfort, you're not always you can't depend on other people to give you comfort. You can't depend on other people to make you feel loved. You have to do that within yourself. So this is a great exercise for that. And these are the kinds of things I'll be teaching in my um, women's detox group in November, mid-November. So I have that service on my website, so you'll check it out. And if you're interested, if you want to learn all these cool things, let me know. It's going to change your life. But I really hope this helps. And if you really put the work in, it will. And if you have any questions or you're kind of confused about it, feel free to ask me in the comments. In the comments of this video, ask me some questions and I'll answer them. I'm here to help. So try it out. Let me know how it goes. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.